Okay, quick story time on how I met Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon. Now, you might be wondering, why am I always meeting conservative figures? Well, because it's much more interesting to meet people you disagree with than people you agree with, then it's just an echo chamber. And I find it interesting to meet people I disagree with ideologically. I find very often that good people can have bad ideas and bad people can have good ideas, and it's important not to mix up the two. Just because somebody has bad ideas doesn't make them a good person. It doesn't make them a bad person. Just because somebody has good ideas doesn't make them not a bad person. If you know what I'm saying. A little tongue twister there. Anyway, I was in D.C. for an event. It was kind of a political event a couple of years back. And it was kind of part of a live event, right? So the main hall was the guests like Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, Cory Booker would be interviewed at kind of a big open hall, and then afterwards they would mill about and do subsequent smaller interviews. So that was kind of the setting. And the first interesting thing I realized, I was out in the back kind of green room among the things, one of the producers came out and said, hey, quick, you guys, Alec, come here. I thought, well, what's going on? And they're like, oh, we need you to sit in these seats. And I was like, what? And then anyway, I follow out to the main auditorium, and they have all the proper massive cameras out, all the lights out, exactly as you would think a big auditorium event, live show would be. Almost like exactly as you imagine you've seen Aaron Sorkin's in the newsroom, that opening scene where he's sitting on the chair and then he gives that nice soliloquy. It looked exactly like that, except for 2/3 of the chairs were empty in the audience. And that's when I first realized, a lot of stuff is pretend. It can look very fancy and big through the camera lens, but behind it, if you don't see the audience, there's usually a reason why, and that audience happened to be very small. Not a lot of people turned up. And then that correlated to why aren't people turning up? Maybe because the guests they view as actually not being that big. They've been kind of outcast by the DC elite. If that many people are turning up, maybe Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon aren't as important as we're led to believe in media, right? Anyway, this continues, and then after the subsequent main interview that they had, Kellyanne Conway would get off the stage, and then she'd mill about, and that's when I would go ask her a couple questions. And here's my interaction with Kellyanne Conway. My interaction with Kellyanne Conway was she was very, we'll say moody. Is a nice way of phrasing it. She was in a bad mood. I remember her handler was just kind of trying to get her out of the venue in a way. She didn't have any time to answer questions. And I remember I stopped her eventually by saying, oh, can I ask you some questions on, female empowerment and how other women can enter, the business or political sphere and, rise to the top? And she turned around and said, okay, I have time to answer a few questions. And then I amateur hour, I asked her the question, but I didn't include the word, I think, woman in it the first go around. And she was just dead-eyed me and said, I thought these questions were about, women in business or something. And I remember thinking, oh, geez, all right, let me rephrase real quick. You're all right, sorry. At the same time, the position in which we were interviewing these people was right next to a freight elevator behind in the back of the green room. Welcome to actually, working in venues. The way they're laid out makes no sense because people that design venues have no concept of production. So they'll put massive freight elevators with, waiters wheeling massive glasses of water and all kinds of things back and forth when you're trying to do an interview. Anyway, that was my interaction with Kellyanne Conway, that she was very sharp and very unfriendly. The inverse was true of Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was very easy to pull for an interview. He was very friendly. He knew also, when the people were operating the cameras, so it was kind of like a stand-up interview, he knew exactly where to stand with the lighting, so he was able to put his own lav mic on. He immediately got in a position where the best lighting was able to look directly at the camera, all without prompting. And if you do this for a living, as a producer, reporter, journalist, correspondent, whatever, you realize how often people are untrained in talking to a camera or standing in lighting or putting on microphones. As a side, Neil deGrasse Tyson every interaction I've had with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's always made the person with the lav mic put it on him. It's come on, Neil deGrasse Tyson, you're on TV all the time, you know how to put on a lav mic. Anyway, tangent aside, Steve Bannon hopped to it immediately. He was a breeze. And then he had no problem answering any questions anybody asked. The only problem was he would actually go on for too long, which is a skill in and of itself to kind of cloud sometimes the actual point you're trying to make. Because when you go on for a long time, it sometimes makes the sound bites hard. It forces the people on the back end, if it's being cut up for video, to make sometimes arbitrary cuts to get a certain length. So sometimes speaking a long time can actually be a tactic. Nonetheless, he was very friendly. He spoke at great length on whatever topic you asked him. He shook everybody's hands, nice to meet you, Mr. Bannon, Steve. So whatever you may feel about Steve Bannon and his ideology, once again, I found him very friendly and very willing to humor the media, but perhaps that's why he's been so successful, is he knows how to play the media, much like Donald Trump knows how to play the media, whereas Kellyanne Conway in some ways was ice cold. Anyway, that's the story for today. If you want to watch another video, click around. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is a quick video because I'm about to catch a flight. Alright, bye guys.